jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show.
Join us as we cover many an insane movie and numerous cult TV phenomenons. Are you ready to get jacked up? Are you with us? Then listen on.
Listener discretion is advised. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show.
Alrighty, thank you for joining me, John.
Always good to be here.
We'll just do a brief episode on our favorite special editions and director's cuts. So, when did you how many of these movies do you think you saw where it's like you saw the actual like intended like restored version that was like part of the marketing point? It was otherwise an obscure movie or had only been released on a cut down theatrical cut VHS or generic DVD.
Oh, for some of those, I didn't realize about all that until years later, and I managed to discover them eventually, and managed to watch them.
Probably my earliest, like, I was so used to all the other just like 80s and 90s movies had special editions, you know, anything by Ridley Scott, George Lucas, and Terry Gilliam. But the biggest surprise for me was really Touch of Evil, which I found out was restored by the editor of Apocalypse Now, who helped with the recreation of that movie as well. Everyone definitely check out the final cut. Even if you hated the Redux cut, check out the final cut, which cuts out some of the less agreeable stuff, and it's never looked more perfect. But Touch of Evil was interesting because I saw it in a film studies class. I'd already seen it on TV, and I was just like, okay, you know, it's acceptable, but it's kind of a little self-indulgent for me. But seeing it, you know, not only in a private theater, the way it's meant to be seen, but also like I could tell it was the director's edition, just not only because it was a DVD, but also just because it's like, yeah, these scenes, these are not in whatever the theatrical one that gets played on TV because they're just too dark. There's just way more gritty. But I mean, anyone who wants to see it, they owe themselves to see it. Is like, yeah, you totally wouldn't have anything like Hannibal or The Dark Knight if you didn't have this movie. But this movie in and of itself, like, you just get so absorbed by the world of evil, and it's so worth seeing, even though there's some brown washing in it. But it's pretty stellar, just dark underworld kind of movie.
I still gotta check that one out.
Orson Welles, man. Isn't it kind of wild how everyone talks about Terminator 2, you know, as the special edition with some the deleted scenes put back in that actually, you know, don't affect the movie either way, but are kind of a nice addition. But then Terminator 4 Salvation, everyone forgot, you know, yeah, there's an R-rated cut of that.
I actually forgot about that also.
It also doesn't really make too much a difference in the way or another, but it's definitely slightly darker. So it's like, okay, there's some different scenes with Michael Ironside, so I guess that's a plus.
I guess so.
And nudity. So, and can't speak enough about Johnny Mnemonic because it's like, okay, this was the cut that you could previously only get in Japan, and it's like, but the beginning was different, the music was different, and everyone still to this day will not watch it because they associate it with other silly cyberpunk movies like Virtuosity and Judge Dredd. And I'm like, well, if you actually see this uncut, you will get a way different movie as opposed to the just silly, cheesy, Total Recall type movie that it was in the theater. Can't say enough about Nemesis or Blade Runner or even Salt, the Angelina Jolie movie, but really the biggest surprise was Cyborg with Van Damme, because like, okay, they weren't able to remaster it all, but it felt like a more complete movie and less problematic if you see that German region free Blu-ray. But it's really is kind of yeah, it's still going to be a rough sit through, but for those who like just cheesy cyborg movies, it's look no further than that one. But I definitely have noticed there's been a lot of other ones that everyone kind of doesn't talk about as much, like Law Abiding Citizen and Payback, and it's like, well, it's not enough to like change it up if you already really don't like it, but you still get a slightly different movie. Like you've talked about Revenge, the Kevin Costner film by Tony Scott.
Oh yeah.
It's like that looked way more by using his Man on Fire type edits, and I mean, you lost some stuff.
More appealing. That's what helped it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, and everyone's like, some people were complaining, oh, but I liked some scenes with those actors and that. I'm like, well, not to shit on them or anything, but those are the scenes that kind of don't work.
Plus, it managed to make it feel more like a complete film overall, and it managed to tell both sides of Revenge, for both Costner's side and Quinn's side.
Oh, totally.
People don't realize until you rewatch it.
Oh, totally. And I mean, both versions of Dawn of the Dead, both the original 70s film and the remake from 2004, I mean, their director's cuts did a good job of just showing just some extra character moments. And everyone, of course, thought, oh, that just means more carnage. I'm like, well, there's more carnage in the back of those scenes, but that's not the only thing that's making it work. It's, actually adding it to it. And Ridley Scott's director's cuts, I guess you could say, the only ones that really seem to make a very different movie are Kingdom of Heaven and Black Hawk Down. Gladiator has this extra stuff, but you don't need it. You really don't. And American Gangster, same thing, just extra, confiscating drug scenes. And it's like, yeah, you don't need that either. Ridley, why do you do this to us? You just said you picked up the Tears of the Sun one, though. So.
Yeah, I still haven't watched that yet. I'm going to soon.
That was another one made post Black Hawk Down by Sony, and I dug it because, again, Antoine Fuqua,
Oh, yeah.
was able to make a very just, he hated making the movie, but, well, made one hell of a movie, just showing a Navy SEAL who's just callous, just trying to open up and rediscover his humanity is like, yeah, okay. And Hans Zimmer's score was just electric, and the other supporting cast was good, but just like that final battle, man.
Oh, yeah.
Way to go.
Very intense and filled with a great amount of tension, I'd say.
Oh, totally. And there's been plenty of other war movies like in westerns like Heaven's Gate and Major Dundee and The Big Red One that also formed a totally different movie. But this one was interesting because, like, yeah, I would actually like to see those extra scenes with the dictators who were just, having some liquor, and then, they bring some refugees in and just start slaughtering them in there. It's like, it totally complemented the rest of the mood instead of just cutting straight to just just the various newscasters and other stuff.
Oh, yeah. Well, the ones that I'll mention was the two of the James Cameron's films that I think I actually prefer the director's cuts of, which was Aliens and The Abyss.
Oh, totally.
Particularly Aliens with the, showcasing what happened in the years that she's been, frozen and happened to her daughter, and then that builds up to her relationship with her and Newt, which I appreciate even more than they did in the theatrical version.
Yeah, I mean, because Aliens, you just got way more just fill-ins and suspense, as well as just showing how certain parts of how they got to the planet and rigged up automatic, guns, and even just getting to the cave and more scenes with Newt and Ripley, but
and showcasing what happened to Newt's parents also.
I'm not sure if that's the scene if I think they show some of those scenes on the versions that often would play on AMC or TNT, but I'm unsure. You know.
Mm. And the
I'm
Abyss,
sure they cut out some.
like there were certain scenes they added that I didn't realize were actually just for director's cuts at the time. And then I know some people either like the ending or I'm not so sure. I'm more on the I actually don't mind the ending and the message that it gives throughout. And I think it's actually a better ending than what the theatrical version gave, yeah.
I definitely
Which
think that was the version I saw, and it was kind of like Legend, where those were just the only versions you could get on DVD or
well,
some
yeah.
shit like that. And my father made the note, or not my father, my uncle made the note, and just saying, yeah, they didn't have that version in the cut. It's a minor edit, but it's still a somewhat different movie. It's like, jeez. And yeah, it's like Abyss. You could kind of tell like the end effect shots had definitely been made in the 90s versus the 80s, but it didn't take it out of it like
No.
every other edit George Lucas does. It's like there's some stuff in the special editions of the Star Wars trilogy I don't mind. It's just when they do kind of the slow motion during the otherwise cool kamikaze pilot in Return of the Jedi and the
Yeah.
dancers in the Jabba's palace is like, yeah, you didn't need that. I don't mind
No.
the adding extra life to Mos Eisley in the original Star Wars, but the added Jabba the Hutt and Han's walking over him, that was stupid.
Yeah, that was.
The added X-Wing battles, that's fine. It kind of felt a little more empty in space. Like, how many of these X-Wing fighters are there? You know, it's like
That's true.
10? It's nothing.
Yeah, that's
So,
some of those can be very questionable, especially like you said with Return of the Jedi.
oh
I
yeah,
was like,
Return
I
of
don't
the
know why
Jedi.
even bothered.
I mean, they did some cool celebration scenes just showing how it impacted all the planets. It's like, but then when they did the 2004 edits and then they added someone who sounded like Jar Jar Binks in the background shouting, "Hey, hey," I'm like, okay, no need. They apparently got even worse with the Blu-rays. Like, they did a good job of like digitizing Yoda
Oh
in
yeah.
Phantom Menace, but then because that's what the 3D version had been like, re-release, but then they did just some utter like I didn't mind the adding the Darth Vader yell from Revenge of the Sith in the Return of the Jedi, but someone's gonna be pissed because it's just endless re-edits. It's like, dude.
And
And
him showing Hayden Christensen at the very end. Saying
oh
that's
yeah,
comical. Yeah.
that was bad. And
I'm like, I don't know why you even bother with that.
it technically doesn't make sense. This is like because
No.
Obi-Wan's in his by that logic, you might as well make Obi-Wan look like Ian McGregor as opposed to
Exactly.
Alec Guinness. It's like it. I mean, I get kind of the logic. He's just showing how he's redeemed himself, but it's like, yeah, no, thank you. This reminds me, I gotta go for some riff tracks of Star Wars. Some funny shit.
Well, I bet.
I noticed in this Shout Factory Blu-ray of Candyman, there was a unrated foreign cut. It just had a little slightly extensions of the gore and everything is like that they had to cut down for R. I'm like, wow, I'm surprised that just got uncovered.
Oh yeah. That's I know one of the films I know that was heavily edited was Lord of Illusions. And I managed to get the director's cut of that on Film Shout Factory itself
Wow.
by Barker, and you could definitely tell that they added more of the gore, but also added certain moments to the story, which I also appreciated at the time.
Yeah, them
Just to make more
and
sense.
even Severant Films and this other one that I forget the name of, which just find all these just obscure, it can be trash from the drive-in circuit, or it can just be just more just lost movies, and it's like, man, how did you guys find these elements? And then there's movies that's like, yeah, I mean, if anyone who watches the unrated, unfortunately not enough people did, is like some of these unrated cuts like were the way these movies were meant to be seen. Like the Wolverine, not Origins, not Logan. I'm talking about the 2013 one. Is like that's the way I saw it. I downloaded it off of iTunes and it had the unrated cut. And it's like okay, there's free extra F-bombs and more arrow play that, ended in fatalities, but it was gritty, and it was definitely, I'm glad I saw it that way as opposed to, the way everyone else saw it, where there's like, okay, it's fast paced. It's like, yeah, but there's a few extra scenes in there that do actually make a difference. Live Free or Die Hard. I mean,
I was gonna mention that.
Yeah, 4.0. It is like, if you watch it with the CGI gore, you actually find out what happened to some of the henchmen, including Russo or somebody, I think his name is. He gets thrown. It's like, you wonder what happens to him. Is he dead or is he still alive? It's like, nah, he's dead. And if you see that unrated, they confirm it. He's like,
oh yeah,
picks up like Russo's gun and key card, and his bloody body's in the background. It's like, that would make a difference. Chronicles of Riddick, I saw that the way it was meant to be seen for the unrated DVD, because that was the only version I could find at the video store. And I guess I'm glad I did, because I came around to all the Riddicks as I grew up. It's still the weakest one, but it's still, like, I prefer it over all the other Fifth Element knockoffs and Star Wars inspired movies, because I mean, CGI was never going to age well, but I mean, I at least got a vision of what the world was going for, even though the scenes with the Arbiter like Colts get a little tiresome. It's still interesting just having that extra just one-liners, and
I have to still get to those one day. Just to rewatch
yeah.
them.
Well, unfortunately, they're all on the Blu-rays and DVDs nowadays, so it's like, yeah. And I mean, they did one for Pitch Black, but it was just kind of just a way to sell it, when it really, there was nothing any different in the content. It just had different, like, cuts, like angles, like, and not into the content or anything, but just in that, like, someone would say a line and it'd be like a few frames earlier, but from a different, camera angle.
Oh yeah.
And so it's like, I noticed that was the case, as well as with Riddick 2013, but that was another one where it's like, it was just a marketing tool. It's like, okay, so these are the scenes that, years ago would have probably been on a theatrical cut or a TV edit, just to pace it for all the stuff you're going to edit out. But wouldn't apply now, because I'm sure they air that one totally uncut now.
Oh, I'm sure.
Doom had a bunch of extended scenes that were just like Easter eggs. Death Machine was another one that I came upon.
I was gonna mention that too.
Oh, really? You got that one? Okay.
I don't have that one, but I know about that.
How about Hardware?
I tried Hardware. I forgot about that one.
All good. Hardware is interesting because, like, basically the cheaper Blu-ray I got was actually just as good as the other releases. But yeah, Death Machine was interesting because, like, I always thought there was something interesting in that movie, but I could just tell it was cut down, and I was watching it, edited on Sci-Fi Channel, and it's like, yeah, but here's the thing, is like, they really were because, again, there's some violence in the background. You miss some key moments and motivations for some of the mad scientists. So it's just like, yeah, it's just another movie that, lowbrow title and all, it was still a way better B movie than anyone gave it credit for, because they cut it down.
That was the problem with that. I still enjoy Death Machine for what it is. I think that's why Stephen Norrington got Blade, I'm pretty sure at this point.
Unfortunately so. He's just gone back to doing occasional effects work, and it's a shame, because with that and the first Blade, I could just tell, and I think he worked as an effects guy on Aliens and Alien Free, and so that's why it's just so funny, because he used some of the same Foley and kinds of editing techniques, and it's like, okay, well, so he was never going to be James Cameron, but he had the same kind of school of thought, make an honest, kind of gritty B picture, then give it life, and then
he had like a certain style to him, which is why I also appreciated.
I was really even surprised when I looked at his resume. I was like, he hasn't even done a music video? Oh, he totally could do a music video with this kind of kinetic energy that he's got in the room.
But it's not like overblown like some directors would be.
No, like Russell Mulcahy kind of got, I mean, Video Killed the Raven Star was a big music video, and then after the 90s ended, he just kind of did mercenary work, and each time I was always like, you of all people did this movie? Man, how the mighty have fallen. The Punisher films, I really do think are better for their Blu-ray re-edits, especially the 80s one, because you can see what the director was aiming for, and same kind of deal is like these guys got work in the 80s and 90s, and it was also just kind of interesting in the 2004 one how that kind of became kind of a training day movie, if you see that extended moments, and even the animated segment, which they couldn't show, was cool because it gave you an idea of the Gulf War stuff. But unfortunately, that's another one. It's like, had that been the one that ended up in theaters, that would have been the better movie. And you just you had cut. And it's just so funny how Warzone, there is no unrated cut. What you got was what you got.
Which I don't mind, because that's still my favorite Punisher movie. So
I think it is for everyone, and everyone made it a punching bag back in the day, and it's like, well, here's the thing: the Punisher was always kind of a B movie kind of thing, and that's the other thing is it seems like none of these movies were ever going to catch on with a theatrical crowd. They were always going to catch on the video circuit, and it is kind of wild how many of these cuts we've seen that do make you wonder, is like, even if they used it as a marketing tool, how many of them kind of actually would have benefited from the theatrical, and then it made you realize it's like, but that's just it, that these were never going to be theatrically released that way, because even if the ratings approved, it's just time and money was spent on processing the film reels, and less film reels, less minutes, less frame time. Well, that's what we're gonna have to do. It's just like, jeez. Anything to sacrifice quality for quantity.
Yeah, that seems to be the case most of the time now. Jesus, guys. Oh, speaking of Clive Barker, there was another director's cut, if I remember correctly, was Nightbreed.
Yes, I'm glad that and Alien Free are definitely ones like, I mean, and for the longest time, both of them were just fucked up because the work prints came into releases and they were like used as special features, but they were just such bad quality. They had to be cleaned up. And it's just so cool how Nightbreed, you can find it on Tubi now, and it's the uncut, way it was meant to be seen. So it's like, okay, so there is an afterlife for these movies that 20 years ago we never thought was possible. Not at all. Not even remotely.
That's how I got to watch it when it was on Netflix at one time.
Oh, perfect. Clive Barker, Betty.
She did more movies, but
right. Yeah, well, and that's the other thing too. I think the other issue is his works have been so adapted, but you kind of feel that kind of influence in even a H.P. Lovecraft movie,
Oh yeah.
He was inspired by Lovecraft. Another movie, I'm seeing Major Dundee is playing on Turner Classic Movies this month, and I'm willing to bet you it's probably the director's cut, the Peck and Paw cut that was meant to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's even funnier how Wild Bunch has gotten multiple Blu-ray releases, and yet Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid has not gotten one yet. I guess the elements just are not there, so you will have to do the DVD cut. And of course, Stallone has done plenty of ones. It's kind of funny how he's got an extended one of the first Expendables with, different edits that work better, and of the Rambos, but yet it's funny how Cobra has not gotten one. It's gotten the Shout Factory release, but they weren't able to add the TV edits, which you can find on YouTube videos where it's like, if someone could stitch that together, it'd be, or just have that as an option, play the TV version, that would be a way better add-on, because it's way different there too. It's just like, it's just so funny how when you dial back the ego and the studios that are producing it, and you have to edit a movie for TV, it's just so funny what deleted scenes that got scrapped because the a character isn't in that scene, so of course they were going to get removed one way or the other. It's just like, yeah, I wonder how many people would have liked to see that version of the movie. This is and in this case, from what I'm seeing, it explained the killer better. And it gave the cop partners more to do, and it's like, all right,
That would have helped.
that would have so helped as opposed to just I've lost alone shouting at shit.
It would be interesting to see like the director's cut of Event Horizon. I know they tried to get it a Shot Factory, but it was just too lost.
Paramount
The bullets
sucks.
are so lost, which
Yeah, thank you, Paramount.
sucks.
Waterworld and Dark City have gotten upgraded both on DVD and Blu-ray.
I got the Blu-ray of Dark Cities director's cut, so
Good. Some will just never happen. Like they tried it with Highlander 3 times now. It's not going to happen. But I saw someone was working on a fan edit. I'm like, that's great. You do you, dude. Highlander 4, it seemed like the better version was the work print, and it just sucks that you can only view it as not only a special feature, but with the time coding at the bottom. So it's like Hard Target. Although Hard Target did they ever confirm that was the uncut Blu-ray you're finally going to see? Because it seems like some people were
No, it sounds like it's the one that's on the Blu-ray right now, just with new interviews, from what I've heard at least.
None of the... Yeah, because other people were saying it looks longer, but it still doesn't seem to have the same exact edits as the work print. So that's the other thing, too.
I'd love to see, because I've never seen a work print of that, so...
Oh, really? Okay.
No.
Yeah, I think you can find it on Vimeo and other sites. It is interesting, though, how everyone always acts like a work print is going to have the exact same kind of edit. And it's like half the time it's just a different take or a blooper, and it just got leaked somehow. And they did that with Payback, where they were just like, hey, it's a totally different movie, but there are still some scenes in the work print that aren't in the original cut. I'm like, that's fine. Some of those are just bloopers or different edits. Just to wrap up a few more, obviously the Lord of the Rings extendeds are the way to go with those, but Justice League, I mean, that's totally the way to see it. See the new 4-hour cut on HBO Max, and do it over 2 days like a miniseries, and just have fun with it, because like all that stuff with the Cyborg and the Flash, that made the movie complete. The last movie was just a punching bag fest, and it's like both literally and just as a critically, and it's just like, yeah, you add this stuff, you really do get a way easier movie, better animation, better voiceovers and re-recorded stuff by Kieran Hines, bad guy, and I think he omitted one of the other supporting villains and just restructured it better, and it's like, yeah, so it doesn't feel like a silly Fast and Furious or Transformers movie like it looked like originally. Now it looks like as epic as it was meant to look. Are there any other announced director's cuts that they're thinking of doing soon?
I know this is just announced like was it 2 weeks ago, or one of them 2 weeks ago. They're doing the Krampus Naughty cut. I'm not sure what that's supposed to be.
What?
Yeah, for Shell Factory, and I'm sort of curious as to what that is, because I've never heard of another cut of that movie whatsoever.
Is it rated R?
Yeah, it's rated R. Well, in fact, it says Naughty cut. I'm pretty sure it's rated R.
Well,
I think the director did say it's rated R.
Well, and I mean, I could see Adam Scott or Tony Collette or somebody just using some colorful language in that movie.
Oh, it seems, I'm reading it now, restores key dialogue and scenes that had been trimmed from the original theatrical release to pieces of MPAA.
I mean, I didn't have a problem with it, but I know some people who hated it, they might actually like it better, I guess, if they see that version.
They might. I mean, I like the version as it is, but I'm curious to watch this new one, see what's the difference.
Be even more interesting just seeing what that director does in the future.
True.
If you can do something else besides monster movies, I'm down. Not big on those new Godzilla films.
Well, he's only done one, so
that's fine. It is actually kind of funny how some of those Godzilla movies, you can get like some of the foreign versions versus like Universal or Warner Brothers edits on Blu-ray, and it's just like, and most collectors are gonna just our friends at the Stump Down podcast, who are friends with Give Us Back Our Action Movies and Charlie Chase, they have a great podcast talking about all kinds of monster movies and reviewing them. Like, and they're not all kaiju. Some of them are also, Jurassic Park type stuff, or just Tremors, or just, again, anything involving a monster, like the Wolfman, or
oh yeah,
from the 40s. And it's just funny how they'll they were talking about which ones they had to import and which ones, like, man, how did they find this version? It looks like a rare, TV version that played on antenna channels when they were becoming big. So it's just funny how it's like the hunt continues for all this media. And I'm sure we'll do another edition of this. I mean, there's plenty of other just director's cuts where it's like you just look at them and you just think, man, I mean, what could have been? And it just, again, it's no pointing in butthurt over it. It wasn't meant to be. And Blu-ray is the second life now of every movie. It's like, if you enjoyed it then, you'll really love it now. If you didn't ever see it or didn't enjoy it then, you might even like it even more, because now, again, we got these special features, we got these different edits, and so you can spend the time if you want on out of your busy work schedule every weekend.
It's interesting when we talk about, because there's a recent movie where one of the actors came out and said something, which is Frank Grillo, about Cop Shop, and he mentioned how a lot of his performance was edited down, apparently.
To 2D, so yeah, it does make you wonder if it's just his ego that needs a stroking, or if it really would actually make a huge difference.
It was actually producers from what I've heard that did that. I guess they changed the ending from what I've heard. So not everybody's asking for like the Carnahan cut when it comes to Blu-ray, which I'm like, okay.
It is funny how that's now kind of a thing. Release the such and such cut is now
the Schumacher cut of Batman Forever. That's the one. Always here now.
That's been fun to see. You said that was kind of a brief thing they were joking about with release the Green Lantern cut. It's like, nope, not happening.
Yeah. And the director's like, that ain't happening over my dead body.
Right.
So I'm like, I don't blame you, Martin, but it's the story.
It is funny which ones just are never gonna be in. Like, for it to happen, it's gonna take a lot of money and a lot of interested people, but mostly a lot of money.
Yeah, that's if they even want to make that. That's the problem. Even try to put any effort into creating one, at least.
It's been even more wild how that's part of Open Road Films, and it seems like they've had deals with both Fox and Universal, and it's been just really even just surprising. It's like, wow, okay, where did these guys come from? But it's interesting how they're a lot of them are really just taken over.
That's what it seems like at this point. Well, like I said, it's strange that Grillo announced on his Instagram, but then he deleted it right after.
I'm sure he had to. And said, "Oh, God, doing damage control, got to take it down." But it's like, hey, people pay attention and screenshot everything. So
I did. I still have it on my phone. So sorry, folks, and I had to do it.
Pretty certain there's going to be a museum that showcases every deleted or controversial tweet.
But at least he did say like he still likes the movie overall. It's just he wishes the producers didn't interfere with it too much.
Yeah, and fortunately, most of these movies we've talked about really were a matter of it wasn't so much ego or that's not the version I prefer. It really was, no, this is a totally different movie, both in tone and The ones, unfortunately, that most new were the ones that were just sped up, very little narrative or exposition before, and just instant cut to an explosion that only confuses as opposed to excites.
Yeah.
Thank you for being on here.
Oh, always good to be here.
We'll return after these messages.
Hey, feeling down? Feeling low? Not enough podcasts about movies in your life? Why not try
They must be destroyed on sight.
the new Podcast Cure-All? Sure to get you right with the world and on a path to better living. We have exploitation, we have Italian horror, we have zombies, we have slashers, we have crime films, we have spaghetti westerns, we even have sci-fi and sex comedies. So take a dose of
They must be destroyed on sight.
as needed, and let the hosts, Lee Russell, Daniel Harper, Paul Romali, and the odd guest host cure what ails you.
Warning, may cause atrophy, African consumption, black fever, bone shave, chin cough, colic, cramp colic, dropsy of the brain, elephantitis, grocer's itch, jaundice, mania, miasma, mortification, palsy, Pott's disease, rheumatism, scurvy, St. Anthony's fire, summer complaint, and worm fit in some people. Consult a physician before listening.
Hey, I heard you like movies.
I heard you like to hustle.
I heard you like podcasts.
Well, guess what?
There's a podcast for you out there called The Home Video Hustle.
Damn right.
Every Friday, we talk about whatever movie PJ picks out the bag. What does that mean? Every Wednesday on our YouTube page, I put a bunch of movies in a bag, and PJ picks one out at random. And then we just watch it. We talk about it for maybe like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever we feel like doing, wherever the conversation leads us.
But do we actually talk about the movie?
Most of the time.
Ah,
Tangents galore.
yes.
So believe me, we may be a movie podcast, but it's not always about movies. We may talk about video games,
Music.
Yeah, that's the big one, music. Sometimes we might get a little bit of politicalness in there.
Yes.
Sometimes we may just, we know what we like to do. We like to tell stories, PJ.
Ah, yes.
I am the master storyteller
Yes.
of the podcast realm. Undefeated. So if you like to hear about movies, video games, whatever foolishness comes to our mind, the most random stuff you could think of, check out the Home Video Hustle. You can find us on the Stitchers,
Yes.
the Google Play,
Yes.
Apple Podcasts,
What else?
Podbean,
What else?
Podcast Addict,
Goddamn.
all that. Ain't no reason you can't get your hustle on. We everywhere, worldwide, baby.
Hustle, motherfucking hustle.
Hey, we can't cuss in the promo, PJ.
Ah,
We gotta be family friendly. There may be podcasts out there that don't want his hair say
ah, ah,
all
ah.
that good fun stuff.
Well, you.
Don't run the listeners away, PJ.
Ah, I'm sorry.
But this is going kind of long.
Yes.
So we're going to end this and say, hey, check out the Home Video Hustle every Friday on all the various podcast outlets. Peace.
Peace.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. And while Witch didn't make it to the top of the world, he did make the Gangs of Hollywood podcast. So join the gang and enjoy a movie review podcast about movie gangs, gangsters, mobsters, and the mayhem they cause. You can find GOH Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at GOH Pod at www.gohpod.com, as well as your favorite podcast listening app. And remember, say hello to your little friend for me.
If you take two old punk rockers who are past their prime, put them in front of a movie screen, and give them a podcast, what do you get? Cinema Punks. Cinepunks. It's the mixtape of movies.
Did you ever see a film at such a young age it left you traumatized with cinematic wounds? Necrophilia. It's a dead issue, man. Don't push it. Cinema Psyops is a weekly podcast documenting an ongoing experiment on the mind of an unwilling test subject.
No one should have to watch this movie.
Oh, no one should have to watch this?
No one should have to watch this movie.
Surprisingly, it's not a topic that a lot of people really want to tackle.
I'm shocked, Prudes.
I know, really.
Right?
It's the next sexual frontier that no one wants to explore.
I am, in the most sincerest of senses, disappointed in you.
It takes a powerful goddess like Connie, jam her arm down the monster's throat and kill it. Oh, I'm still tripping out over that. Even as a kid, I was like, I gotta find a girl like that. Every week, I get a new look of disappointment that I never thought I could get out of her.
Unimaginable. At 12 years old, you should not be watching this movie.
Obviously.
At 13, you should not be. 14, you shouldn't be. I'm not entirely sure even 17-year-olds should be watching this.
Just because you're offended by something doesn't mean that you have the right to demand that it doesn't exist. Watching this film again, I had all of this like little nerd glee with everything that kept
little
popping
history
up.
doll popping up
absolutely.
at you.
So I totally loved this film.
Hey, I know why you couldn't see that. It's because your brain's warped from watching this shit at 12 years old.
Yeah, this is a rough movie. I told you ahead of time when we were getting ready to do it that it was
How
going to be
could
a
you
rough
watch
one.
this shit at 12?
Because physical wounds heal, cinematic ones don't. Listen to Cinema Psyops.
Hey everybody, I'm Corey.
And I'm Zach, and we're the hosts of Podcasting After Dark, a cast dedicated to late-night horror and sci-fi of the 80s and 90s, often found on HBO and Cinemax.
You know, the movies your parents didn't want you watching as a kid. You can find us every other week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and Stitcher.
This is what you want.
This is what you get.
It's time, let's check our queue, baby. Pair it with a couple brews, baby. We love good movies. We love the bad ones too. So we watch them all and pass their lessons on to you. Oh yeah. Everything I learned from movies helps to make life a little bit groovy. Whether one last plot holes or gratuitous movies, it's time to get busy with your friend Steve and Izzy at eilfm.podbean.com.
Welcome to Who Was She podcast. I am your host, Tara Jabari. After a decade working in documentaries, marketing, and all things digital media, I found that podcasting is a strong medium to share stories. After years of producing for others, I decided to start my own biographical podcast. Who Was She will focus on the life of a woman throughout Baha'i history. The first season is about Lydia Zamenhof. Lydia's story explores the subjects of the power of language and faith. Her father invented the universal language Esperanto, and she came from a Jewish family and became a Baha'i. She grew up during World War I and was killed during World War II in a concentration camp, despite heroic efforts to save her life. How can one person's life intersect with so many others, connect across borders, and inspire a biography which inspired this podcast? Over the next few weeks, I will share her story with you and the lives that were most affected by her and those who affected her life as well. They include her father, Ludwig Zamenhof, her spiritual mother, American journalist Martha Root, and the Baha'i German soldier Fritz Mako, who worked for the resistance undercover while having to serve the Nazi Party. I want to thank the author Wendy Heller and George Ronald Publishing for their blessing to let me use Heller's biography, Lydia, The Life of Lydia Zamenhof, Daughter of Esperanto, as a main and instrumental resource for this podcast. So please subscribe and learn about this amazing woman who traveled through 3 continents in an effort to bring unity through the power of language. You can also find more information on our Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest at Who Was She Podcast. Music was composed and performed by Sam Red. I am your host, Tara Jabari. Join us next time as we begin our journey about Lydia Zamenhof.
Hi, everybody. It's Mac Jackson. I wanted to invite you to a new site called the Forever Adventure Network. This website has everything. Pictures, videos, blogs. There's original music by Harmony Constant. 2 podcasts. One is the MacGyver Podcast, where we celebrate Richard Dean Anderson, his iconic roles, and how it's influenced our lives. There's episode discussions, interviews, and life conversations. The second podcast is the Never Gets Old Podcast, where we celebrate all the best things that we love in life, from TV, movies, music, and comics. The site is also the home for the MacGyver SG-1 audio series, an ongoing adventure series that continues the adventures of MacGyver and SG-1. There are also multiple stores to choose from for all of your pop culture and adventure needs. Come on by and check us out today. And thanks for joining the adventure.
Are you sick of the same old stale podcasts? Well, then join Vanessa and Darren as they dissect movies of all kinds. The 2 lifelong cinema lovers bring their favorites, curiosities, and first-time watches to the operating table and inject them with a healthy dose of snark. Then there's the waiting room, where they examine books and short stories. So just look for them on Apple Podcasts and where fine podcasts are available. They're part of the Legion Podcast Network. Follow them on Twitter at VDClinicPod. Join them on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/VDClinicPod. Or email them at vdclinicpod@gmail.com. They're ready to cure what ails you. And still, they just might be a little contagious.
Hi there. It's Heather from the Watching Netflix Without You podcast. Did you know that there are over 1,200 Netflix original feature films and documentaries? And that number is only growing. So I've made it my mission to watch as many as I possibly can. Then, with a delightful guest or guests, disclaimer, more often than not my brother Ryan, we spend an episode rating, reviewing, and discussing a film at length. The first half of every episode is spoiler-free for those who haven't seen it yet, and in the second half, after a very clear spoiler warning, we dive into it. And that's really about it. You can listen to Watching Netflix Without You on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and more.
We now continue with our program.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up